Utah football had a scrimmage this last Saturday. We got to see the team in action. Who were the standouts, and what should we make of Cam Rising's first action on Rice-Eccles Stadium in a long time? We're going to discuss on today's Locked On Utes.
You are Locked On Utes, your daily podcast on the Utah Utes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for making Locked On Utes your first listen every single day. We are available on all platforms, including YouTube and wherever you may get your podcast. If this is your first time listening to our show, make sure you like and subscribe. Love interacting with all of you in the YouTube comments. You can also follow us on social media, which is X at Locked On Utes. Today's episode of Locked On Utes is brought to you by FanDuel. You can make every moment more. New customers can join today, and you'll get $200 in bonus bets if your first bet of $5 or more wins. You can visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn to get started. My name is JT Wistrcill, former intern inside the University of Utah Athletic Department. Excited to be joined on today's show by Austin Eames of FanNation AllUtes, who was in attendance for the Spring Scrimmage on Saturday. So, Austin, excited to pick your brain about what you saw from the team. And I think the first thing that everyone wants to know, and yes, we'll get to Cam Rising and everything there. Also want to talk a little bit about the Utah men's basketball team defeating Iowa in the NIT. I thought that was something fun and exciting that is worth discussing, but have to start with the scrimmage, of course. And let's start with the under the radar guys, or just the non-quarterback standouts that you really noticed in Saturday's action, Austin.
Yeah, Saturday was really good. I mean, besides seeing Cam at Rice-Eccles Stadium for the first time in what feels like an eternity, there were a lot of guys, a lot of new faces on the field, making a big impact. So there were definitely plenty of guys. There's plenty of names that I could say as far as standouts go. But I think one guy that really stuck out to me was Dolan Bentley. He's a guy that's flown a little bit under the radar since coming to Utah from Snow College. I think he had his first catch and his only catch last year in the Las Vegas Bowl. It was for 5 yards or something, and that was the only offensive stat he produced on the season. But I mean, he's been a guy that's I think breaking out during camp. He was getting first team reps and making a lot of good catches. He had one big catch from, I believe, Brandon Rose. It was a seam over the middle for about 20 yards, jumped up in the air, grabbed it, snatched it out of the air. So, I mean, a tight end that has really good hands will always excel in Utah's offense, as we've seen from the past. But I think the biggest question with Dolan will be, can he get reps behind Brant Keithy and Landon King and Carson Ryan? Obviously, it's a filled tight end room. So, I think he's fighting for it right now. He's fighting really hard to get reps during the season. So, I'm really excited to see what happens with Dolan.
Yeah, it is going to be interesting when you're talking about Bentley. To your point, we're talking about a guy who's a junior college All-American second team 2 years ago when he was at Snow College in 2022. He had 8 catches for 114 yards in that season and plays high school football at Taylorsville, so not that far away. I think the interesting part, if I'm Bentley, look, it's going to be hard to beat out the 3 guys you listed. I think the thing I'm really interested to see for Bentley is, okay, when you look at a guy like a Mickey Sugaturaga, who's still making that adjustment to be the blocking tight end for Utah, I wonder if that's where Bentley can try and carve a rollout for him a little bit more. But it's going to be hard to beat Mickey, who was obviously in that spot last year, and they moved Mickey to that position for a reason. They trust him in that spot. So it'll be interesting to see how it works out there. So you mentioned Bentley as a pass catcher, but I know that wasn't the only pass catcher who caught your eye up on the hill, was it, Austin?
Yeah, there were quite a few pass catchers that caught my eye, and I think one of them is Dadrian Zipperer.
Mm-hmm.
He's a guy who we haven't really heard his name called. He redshirted last year as a freshman, coming to Utah from Florida, but I think he's been making a name for himself out on the field. He was getting a lot of first team reps, had a lot of catches. I think in my notes, his name appeared more than anybody else's. He caught this one crazy deep ball from Cam Rising. It was the last play of the day. It went for like 40 yards, wide open, and the entire team just went crazy. They went bonkers, all running out to him. But I think he's a guy that, if you can put on a little bit of weight, might have a chance to crack that starting receiver lineup. I think right now he's about 6 feet tall, 165 pounds, which is on the smaller side for a wide receiver. We're talking about like Devontae Smith size. So I think I think the team is trying to have him put on weight right now. I think if he can put on another 10 pounds, he can make a big impact on the offense because, I mean, his hands and his quickness were crazy. It was actually the same play that was run 2 times, but catching some screens, and he looked good. He looked good on the screens. He was shifting through the defense, and he seemed to turn everyone in for a bigger game. But yeah, I think Zipper is a guy that could break out this spring.
Yeah, I mean, you'd love it. I mean, you mentioned, hey, his only comparison to Devontae Smith right now is the height, but that is a guy who won a Heisman at the collegiate level. So I wouldn't mind if we continue to hear those names being thrown around with Zipper, but you are right. There is a thin frame there, but this is a guy who's a 3-star recruit for a season. The last time we saw him play an entire season, he averaged 19 yards a catch in his senior season too. So really a fun guy who, when you look back at what he was able to do at Lakeland Senior High School, and a guy that Utah obviously had high hopes for, just was tough. The passing game was already a struggle last year, always tough to make an impact as a freshman. So he's a guy definitely curious to keep an eye on and would love to see if he's able to crack the field this year, but definitely next year when I expect guys like, Dorian Singer, Money Parks, Pittman, if those are Utah's top 3 receivers, and I know Pittman was another guy who stood out to you. We can talk about him in a little bit. But there's some, it's going to be hard for some of the freshmen maybe this year, but after that, there could be a lot of new opportunities for some guys on Utah. So we'll get back into some of the receivers in a second, but I think a lot of us are curious about how the backup quarterback battle is going between Brandon Rose and Isaac Wilson. You got to see both those guys in action, and this is obviously so important too because of Cam Rising's health struggles at times where he usually has missed a game in a key spot or 2 or gone out at a key time. You need to have a strong backup. How did the backup quarterbacks in Brandon Rose and Isaac Wilson look on Saturday?
Yeah, I think there's been a lot of talk about Rose and Wilson competing for that number 2 role. I think Rose has the edge right now. Just his knowledge of the offense and his arm, I think things that put him over the edge.
Yeah.
He looked good in practice. Like I said, he had that big throw to Dolan Bentley. He had a couple other big throws that were really impressive. And I think Isaac's coming along nicely. Isaac, he's a freshman. He's 18 or 19 years old. He's young. He's still growing into his body. Like, I think the weight room will serve him really well. I think his decision making is a little bit raw right now. We saw him throw some interceptions on Saturday, but I don't think it's anything to worry about. Like I said, he's young. He's learning from Cam Rising, so I think he's going to be really fine. But yeah, I would say Rose might have the edge over Wilson right now for that number 2 spot. But both quarterbacks look good, and I think the future is bright, especially with Utah's incoming class next year.
You said Rose, what impressed you most was you can just tell like he has a good grasp on the offense, where to go, the timing of it. And you said you were also impressed with his arm.
Yeah, he has a big arm. I think I've said it before, but I think it might be the biggest arm on the team. He really has that ability to shoot balls over the middle, which is really valuable in a quarterback. I think you see some guys who don't have the good arms picking on the edges, but having a guy that can throw over the middle, especially to quick receivers like the ones on Utah's roster, I think is a really big asset to have. So he's obviously still behind Cam at this point, but I think we'll see. God forbid anything happens to Cam, but we'll see what happens in the future with Rose. I think he's a good quarterback to have behind Rising.
Definitely is. And you mentioned Cam Rising. We got to talk about him and a ton of what these other Utah Utes were able to do in this scrimmage on Saturday as we're just getting started breaking this thing down on the show. But first, want to talk to you all about one of the sponsors of our episode of Locked On Utes today in our friends at FanDuel Sportsbook. Say goodbye to busted brackets because FanDuel lets you bet on every game of the tourney. Whether you're betting on a big upset or a 1 seed, it's time to go dancing on America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. That's $200 to use on the point spreads, money lines. You can even pick who's going to win it all. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and bet on college hoops until they cut down the nets. And like they said at FanDuel, I know my bracket has been busted badly already. So rather than try to figure that out, I would rather just look at some individual matchups. Do you guys think North Carolina is going to make a run? There's a lot of North Carolina schools, and we got NC State, you got Duke. We already mentioned the Tar Heels too. So there is just a ton of Carolina schools down there too. But obviously, can Alabama make things interesting in that matchup too? How about Purdue? Finally, Zach Edey, are they going to continue to keep their strong run going? So many great games to bet on. The March Madness train is still going strong at FanDuel Sportsbook. Also want to talk to you all about another sponsor on our episode of Locked On Utes today. It's our friends at eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. What brings home the winning trophy is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. From superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions do apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. So make sure you guys head over today and check out everything they have going on at eBay Motors. Austin, keeping with the spring theme going, we got to see Cam Rising back inside Wistrcill Stadium. It's a sight fans can't wait to see, whether they get to see it in the spring game or especially come late August when we'll see him back inside Wistrcill Stadium against Southern Utah. What were your thoughts on Cam?
Oh man, I mean, old reliable, right? Like Cam does what he does, and I think we had a lot of doubts on the state of his knee. Obviously, that injury was terrible. And a lot of people were wondering if he could come back. He could come back at full strength. A big part of his game was his ability to extend plays, run for extra yards, run for first downs. I mean, we saw it on the 2-point conversion 2 years ago against USC. It's a huge part of Cam's game. And there were a lot of worries that he might not be the same quarterback without that ability. But I think Cam's dispelled every doubt that his knee isn't okay. Already, we've seen him in spring practice. We've seen him run for a lot of quarterback options, a lot of plays that were broken down, and he had to use his feet. And every time he looks quick. I mean, as quick as Cam can look. But yeah, I don't think there's any doubt that that knee's bothering him. I think his doctors did a good job, and the team has done a good job rehabbing him. And I think he's back. I think he's fully healthy. And obviously, he looked good throwing the ball. I think he's forming a real connection with Micah Pittman, which was amazing to see. You got 2 sixth-year guys forming a connection, and I think Pittman has a real chance to merge as a leading receiver. Maybe not a number one option, but potentially a number one or number two option on the team if he can stay healthy. But it's the same as Cam. Can they stay healthy? I guess we'll see.
Well, you mentioned for Cam, even a guy as accomplished as him, right? When you've missed as much time, you got to shake off the rust a little bit, right? And we saw that the very first play, you kind of noted here that credit Corinne Reed, you said he almost picked off Cam on the very first play. Walk us through that play.
Yeah, Cam Rising. It was the first play of the scrimmage, and Cam threw the ball right past Corinne Reed, who was playing in the middle at linebacker, and he got his hands on it, but couldn't snag it. Had a little bit of butterfingers, but it was close to an interception. So yeah, definitely shaking off the rust.
Yeah, I mean, and Reed's a guy we know he can do that. One of the most memorable plays I ever remember seeing in Wistrcill Stadium was his pick against Dante Moore. It happened right in front of me. I was in the stands for that game. It came right at me. Like, you just saw the instincts and abilities that Corinne Reed possesses that make him, to me, one of the top returning linebackers in college football. I think he's that tremendous. And of course, he's not the only elite player on the defensive side of the ball for Utah. So who were some of the other defensive players that really caught your eye during Saturday's scrimmage viewing session?
Yeah, I think the secondary really jumped out to me at the scrimmage. You have guys like Zamea Vaughn, Teo Johnson, who made the full-time switch to safety.
Yep.
Nick Howe even had an interception on Brandon Rose during the second team's work, which was really good to see. A new guy, the safety from Mater Dei, Jelani Davis, had a really good open field tackle on a tight end. He's a smaller guy. I think he's only about 6 feet tall, but he had a really big tackle on a bigger tight end, so that was good to see. But yeah, going back to Teo Johnson, I think he's a guy I'm really excited for. Coaches have raved about his speed and his IQ. He's played every position. He played quarterback in high school. He played a little bit of wide receiver. He's played cornerback for the team. He's played free safety for the team, and now he's making the full-time switch. The team has him going to free safety. Pardon. And I think he's going to be really good there. Like I said, he has those ball skills from being a wide receiver. He has the knowledge of the game. He can read the quarterback's eyes because he was a quarterback in high school, and he's also got the speed. Coaches have said he's the fastest. He had the fastest 40 time on the roster last season. So I think that's a guy you want guarding the back end of your field. So I think Teo has a real chance to break out.
Yeah, and he's not the only speedy guy on this Utah roster. Let's flip it over to the offensive side of the ball. And as you noted in your notes, some of Utah's running backs really popped too on Saturday, didn't they, Austin?
Yeah, there were two guys I really liked in terms of running backs. Obviously, you're going to miss Jaquindon Jackson, your big bruiser, but I think the team still has a lot of really good options in Jalen Glover, Dijon Stanley, John Randall, Anthony Woods, Micah Bernard, obviously. But I think the two guys that really stuck out to me during the scrimmage were Jalen Glover and Dijon Stanley. Glover got the most snaps alongside Micah Bernard, who I think has the number one spot right now. But Glover looked good. He looked like he could break tackles, which I know was some people's knock on his game last season, that he was too small to break tackles. But he was breaking tackles during practice, and he looked shifty, and he was getting downfield. He was getting those runs that were more than 5 or 6 yards. So that was really good to see. Dijon Stanley, he's a young running back who might be able to break through into the starting rotation, but he's fast. I think he might be the fastest running back on the roster. There was one play where he burnt the entire defense. I think the only person that got him was the free safety at the very end, but he burnt the entire defense, and man, he just shot down the sideline. So I think that real speed is something Utah hasn't had per se in their running back room since Bernard's injury. So I think it's good to have guys that are really burners. Obviously with Mike Mitchell too, you have a bruiser, as we've heard. He's put on some weight. So Micah Bernard's a pass catcher. Jalen Glover is a good another good on the ground option who can do everything. So I don't know. Utah has their pick who they want to use. It seems like they have a guy for everything.
Yeah, it's a stout backfield. And, another unit that also seems like it's really rounding into shape is the pass catching corps. We already mentioned Bentley at the tight end spot. Zipper's already come to mind, but I wanted to dive a little bit more into Pittman. You said he's a guy that really stands out. And we were spent so much of last offseason talking about his connection with Cam Rising. Cam never played. Pittman barely played before getting hurt. But it seems like with those two on the field this year, if they can stay healthy, could be something special, Austin.
Yeah, Pittman's been a guy who's been around the block. He made a pit stop at Oregon, started his career at Oregon, played in Florida State before coming to Utah. And the big knock on him, and it's not his fault, is that he's had trouble staying healthy the past couple of years. But in spring practices, I mean, every ball that touches his hands just stays in there. He doesn't drop balls. And that's what Utah needs. Utah needs a guy that doesn't drop passes. And I think Micah Pittman has a real chance to, if he can stay healthy, make a name for himself on the roster. Obviously, he's getting older. I think he's another 6-year guy like Cam. But I don't know. He's showed when healthy that he can produce. So all hopes are that he can stay healthy. And I think he would just be so good within this wide receiver room that has so many guys like Dorian Singer, Tayshawn Lyons, Money Parks. We talked about Zipper earlier. So Cam's got plenty of guys to throw to.
He absolutely does. There's a loaded corpse. And, one of the guys he did throw to was not on the offensive side of the ball, as he was also picked off by Keenan Johnson. Walk me through what you saw from the transfer on the big INT.
Yeah, Keenan Johnson fit right in. He's a guy that came from Georgia Tech, and he produced there. And yeah, Cam Rising, I think, threw a longer pass to Luca Caldarella and just picked off
Caldaria.
Keenan Johnson, got the best of him on that one. Or pardon me, it wasn't on the pass to Luca. It was on a pass to Money Parks. It was an outside pass. He completed the one to Luca, but yeah, he was picked off by Keenan Johnson on the pass to Money Parks, and Keenan Johnson just got the best of him on that one.
Yeah, exactly. And we've talked about 2 Cam interceptions now, so maybe some people will be listening and be concerned. But look, we are in, what is it, March? I mean, and we're a long way from the season. Cam is shaking the rust off, just getting back into mold. I am never going to be concerned about the experienced guys making mistakes in the spring. I'm not even really going to be concerned about the young guys. I just want to see the potential for what you can do in the fall. And there is loads of that already evidently up at the University of Utah. So great to have that scrimmage in the books. Austin, we appreciate that exceptional breakdown of all of that too. And we're going to be breaking down a lot more of spring football on this channel as we do every weekday. But why don't we give the men's basketball team some shine for what they're doing in the NIT currently, as they just took down the Iowa Hawkeyes. We're going to be diving into that in one moment. But first, I want to talk to you all about one of the sponsors of today's episode of Locked On Utes, our friends at Nissan. This week's March Madness bracket highlight is brought to you by our friends at Nissan. Each week, we're picking one team that stands out, a team that's pushed it further than the rest. Just like any of the all-new 2024 Nissan SUVs, these guys were able to take it to the next level. This week, we're highlighting the Iowa State Cyclones, who can only be described as the Pathfinder. They've been thrilling to watch and have really created a lane for themselves entering the tournament as one of the hottest teams in the country. They have a date with Illinois this Thursday in the Sweet 16, which figures to be a fantastic matchup. So you guys can take the Nissan Rogue, the Nissan Pathfinder, or Nissan Armada and go find your next big adventure. You can shop NissanUSA.com today. Also want to talk to you all about another sponsor on our episode of Locked On Utes today, our great friends at UCCU. Here's some exciting news. UCCU has just elevated their checking accounts by enhancing them with more benefits, more savings, and more online protections than ever before. A lot more paired with the most advanced, comprehensive mobile banking tools. Elevated checking is a must-have financial product packed with lifestyle security and financial benefits. The lifestyle benefits alone include cell phone protection, roadside assistance, telehealth with 24/7 access to licensed health professionals with zero copay, and exclusive savings on travel, shopping, and dining. And elevated checking is free when you do any one of the following. Use your debit or credit card 15 times or more a month, make a monthly direct deposit of $500 or more, or maintain an average daily balance of $1,500. Otherwise, UCCU elevated checking is only $6 a month. You can visit UCCU.com to open an elevated checking account online or stop by any branch to open an account today. UCCU, love where you bank. Austin, of course, it was a disappointment the men's team didn't make the tourney. We knew that was going to happen based on how they ended the season, but thankfully the men's team did not kind of pack up their season when it closed, and a decision that I very much like. Utah entered the NIT. They were a 2 seed in the tournament, and they just took care of Iowa 91-82 in the second round. They'll have a battle with VCU coming up this Wednesday that we'll be breaking down too in short order on the show. But talk about what Utah did against Iowa. You have to start with what Gabe Madsen did. I mean, 7 of 15 from 3-point range. You kidding me? Perfect 6 for 6 at the free throw line too. Utah was good at the free throw line, shot 25 of them, making 19 of them. How about Madsen and Smith combining to shoot 6 of 7, or excuse me, each of them making 6, and with only Smith missing the lone free throw between those two. Speaking of Smith, another triple-double for him, 19 points, 10 rebounds, 10 assists too. Also had 3 steals, getting after it defensively. Brandon Carlson, a nice 12 points, 2 block performance for him too. You see Lawson Lovering did a little of everything. He had 6 points, 10 rebounds, 5 assists, also 4 offensive rebounds too. Just really like the overall well-rounded performance that Utah had. They had a really strong first half, jumping out to that 48-36 lead on the Hawkeyes. And the big differential in this one to me was the threes. Once again, Utah making 5 more threes than Iowa, out shooting them 12-7. So a really nice performance by Utah in the NIT second round, Austin.
Yeah, like you said, JT, obviously the end of the regular season wasn't what you would have hoped, but so far in the NIT, Utah's been putting in the work. Obviously, UC Irvine was a dominating performance, and last night versus Iowa was the exact same thing. You talked about Gabe Madsen already. I mean, Jack Golke here, Jack Golke there, but Max Golke, sorry. But I mean, put some respect on Gabe Madsen's name. He was lighting it up from anywhere on the court. You said 7 of 15 from 3, so I think he's a guy that if he can stay hot, I really like Utah's chances to go far. And this postseason tournament. Obviously, Davon Smith had his fourth triple-double of the season. That's the most in a while for Utah, and I think any time you have a guy like that running your point, you're going to be in good hands. Obviously, dishing out assists, getting rebounds, and also making shots. He was the second highest scorer on the Utah team last night, so really, really great showing out of him. Carlson had a quieter night, but he didn't need to have a big night. He had those other two guys leading the way. So, yeah, it was a complete performance. I mean, even the second tier guys, the second option guys stepped up. Cole Bajema and Hunter Erickson, they've been making their shots, and they've been doing what they need to do. So, I really like Utah going against VCU here later in the week. So, I think, yeah, only time will tell how far Utah can go.
Yep, only time will tell. It's going to be fascinating to watch and see how it plays out. A fun little matchup between former Utah State coaches coming up as Utah will take on VCU. So Ryan Odom taking on Craig Smith there. Should be a great showdown. Final game of the year inside the Huntsman. And, I mean, we've been playing games there since November, so crazy to think how long it's been, stretching nearly into April at this point. So make sure you guys show up and show out in your support for the Utes. Austin, if people want more of your content, where should they head over to?
Yeah, check me out on Sports Illustrated at FanNation AllUtes. All my articles are there. I'm covering everything from college football playoff expansion, Utah football, Utah basketball, and everything in between. So, yeah, I would love it if you guys checked it out.
Always a lot going on, Austin. We appreciate you coming on. Make sure you guys give Austin a follow as well. His Twitter or his X is at Austin Eames 55. Austin, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me, JT. Always a great time.
That's going to do it for today's edition of Locked On Utes. We'll be back with you tomorrow talking more things Utah football.